We're live, Neil?
Yeah.
A rare Wednesday, everybody.
A rare Wednesday.
Special
Wednesday show.
That's what we called it all day. Special Wednesday show. Welcome back, everybody, to the Off the Lip Radio Show. We're live from right here at the Santa Cruz Boardroom. If you're watching on Santa Cruz Waves, welcome. Like I always say, if you're listening on the road, 2 hands on the wheel.
Yes.
Be safe out there.
Phone down.
Put the phone down.
Yes, listen to the show later on YouTube.
Yeah, Pete Madden, both hands on the wheel in that truck, by the way. So welcome back, everybody. Tonight we got a kind of a special show. We're going to talk about this book. Neil, you called me today. You know what you said to me?
What did I say? I did.
You said this is an important show.
Yeah.
And you know we're 970 almost.
Yeah. Well, I just got stuff online, and it kind of all came building and building. I'm like, whoa. And for Renee Schlepfer, for him to take the time to text me all this stuff about her,
all right.
I go, I better pay attention and go, hey, you know.
Well, that's amazing. Heather Sawdon is here. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Thank
you are the author of this book.
I am. I'm honored to be here in your shop.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Real quick, I know this is about your sister. She passed away on the boat that this book is about.
Yeah.
I haven't read this book. It's the first time I've held it in my hand. So you have
we talked about earlier. You had not history, but you.
Yeah.
Well, I know exactly.
That affected you.
Very much so.
Right?
Yeah, this is being unbeknownst to you because we haven't even discussed this yet. I've been boating my entire life. I've been to Santa Cruz Islands many times, surfing and fishing. I am very familiar with the Santa Barbara Harbor, where the Conception was anchored with its sister boats. I was there 2 days after this disaster and saw the memorial when the flowers were brand new. And it was really like, whoa. I mean, I get choked up thinking about that, and I know you would too. But the outpouring of love for that community was incredible.
Yes.
Now, you wrote a book about it.
Yes, I did.
Inspiration, and I know it's your sister, but did you have to write this book?
I could not stop myself.
Come forward, honey.
Yeah, come on forward.
Yeah, come forward. There we go.
I couldn't stop myself from writing it if I tried.
So you knew, how soon after this did you decide you had to do this?
Right away.
Really? Are you an author by trade?
No, I'm a school teacher. I'm an English language learner, or EL teacher, for speakers of other languages.
Okay.
I love it, but my sister Christy and I were both on this journey of becoming published authors before she died. We'd both been trying to write articles, submit to magazines. I was writing a book about scuba diving in the Philippines.
Older or younger sister?
Christy's younger.
Younger, okay.
But I look younger than her, was the joke.
So you were involved growing up, obviously, together. Were you best friends growing up?
We were really good friends. Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably best buds through thick and thin. We had a personality that was playful together. Man, I have so many good memories hanging out with her. I'll tell you one of the earliest ones. So my parents opened up this dive shop at the Santa Cruz Harbor. Mm-hmm. It was called Finstead's Scuba Ventures.
Is that your maiden name? Is that
Yeah,
okay.
Finstead.
What year was that?
71.
Okay.
I was just out on the Chardonnay sailboat.
Yeah.
Awesome thing. And the captain said to me, "Oh yeah, I used to fill my tanks at your parents' shop."
Wow.
Before the other 2 dive shops were in town. We were the first in Santa Cruz. And we bought it from Jack O'Neill. And that relationship was cool because my mom's best friend was Kay Carone, who was a girlfriend of Jack. So they like hang out, double date, whatever. And my dad's a great surfer. So when they got it, though, my dad always says, Jack was wrong. His business style, he said, didn't fit mine. Jack's style was big on advertising. He did a great job. My dad was big on word of mouth. This is back in the Rolodex day. Like, hey kids, it's before there's an internet.
Yeah.
And instead of doing mailings, he said word of mouth, phone calls.
And Jack was his landlord too.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So that
leased the building.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes that could be a little awkward.
Yeah, and he's renting out wetsuits, and they're fresh off. I got the coolest bright purple wetsuit that he came out with.
Colors?
Yeah, like who else had colored wetsuits back then, right?
Right.
I got my first wetsuit in the purple one I got in 1985.
Wow.
Surf suit, I loved it.
That was when colors were big in the mid '80s, right there.
Yeah, the bright neons.
They have made a comeback.
They are, but colors come and go.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, as far as diving goes. I mean,
Yes.
your sister was on a diving trip when
Yes.
this accident occurred, but it sounds like you got into diving young.
Oh yeah, before I was old enough to.
They snuck you in.
Yeah.
Oh, Dad, playing by the rules, Dad.
Get in here, kid.
Yeah, so I was back to a memory. I just remember hanging out with my baby sister. She's 5 years younger than me. We'd be at the beach at the Santa Cruz Harbor. My parents would be running the dive shop all day. We'd either hang out there or be like in the summer, do the lifeguard summer camp thing.
Yeah.
And she sat there and ate sand and loved being at the ocean.
Fast forwarding to this particular dive trip, how was she? How did she find out about it? How did she end up on this boat?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
How did you find out about it? Did you get a phone call from?
My dad called me. I'm 3 hours ahead in Michigan. My son Joe's here.
There's Joe.
Joe's running
He's a good-looking lad.
Thank you. It's a D called DNA. Joe's running a garage sale with me. He had to sell his toys for me to let him get some new ones,
Yeah.
And the phone call came in. My dad said, there's been a terrible accident. We really don't think Christy made it, but we don't know.
It was late. It was after the garage sale, right? It was in
Speak up, Joe, a little bit. There you go.
Yeah, it was late, right? It was like
9:30 in the morning.
yeah, I guess early, not late.
It's summer vacation, you kind of thing. Labor Day weekend, you're just getting back to school. And my husband was out splitting wood with my daughter, and when they came in, my daughter's like, Mom, Aunt Christy, like she's not going to die. She's the person that's going to climb Mount Everest someday and rides the gnarliest wave, or like I was saying, sailed to Fiji to surf, or no, she's not going to die on this boat, Mom. She's going to get out. So my daughter, she'd text her, as soon as you're found, we're going to come see you again and tell how amazing you escaped that fire.
Wow.
But she didn't escape.
And how long until you got that final notification?
They could not recognize the body, but her body was found within a day by some incredible rescue divers that kind of put their life on the line to climb into a rocking upside down hole, like 40 feet water. So they got her body, but she had a whale tattoo from Tahiti. So we knew from the leg whale tattoo. But I gave my DNA, and I was 99.999% match. So it was about 8 days after the fire. By the time I flew out there, gave my DNA, Sheriff Bill Brown of Santa Barbara and Larry, they had this special rapid DNA analysis machine flown in. No, volunteers from Colorado drove it through the night to Santa Barbara to get it there. It's the one they use for...
DNA machine?
Yeah. It's the one they use for fire victims to identify them. They use that to identify...
And that was the word you got was from that machine?
The FBI came to the next of kin, which would have been my sister's husband, Dan Chua, and said we identified her body by the DNA match from me, and she's gone.
And so she was on this boat. She was not with her husband.
Oh yeah, he was diving with shark hammerheads and Cocos off. He was 300 miles off Costa Rica.
So he was in a whole different spot.
Yeah.
Dive with hammerhead sharks?
Yeah, I mean, this is the family company.
She should be Dave Ebert.
This was work. He was, tough day at the office.
Yeah.
Wow. So he found out after.
This was a difficult thing to communicate to him, but Costa Rica did an amazing job. So my youngest sister, Sarah, who had been leading this dive trip the last 4 years while they were off on their sailboat, gets on to San Jose, Costa Rica, calls the emergency satellite. They were able to use satellite to contact their liveaboard boat they were on and say, there's an emergency, you need to get to cell signal. So they went up to University cell tower on the island there near Cocos, and then Dan's cell phone just went berserk with hundreds of messages.
Oh my gosh.
And all they would tell him is terrible accident. We're gonna have to cancel the dive trip. They'd been at sea like 5 days. They had 2 days left, and the customers, or sorry, like family member. We don't call them customers in our company. Mm-hmm. They're like our family. Mm-hmm. They said, "Yeah, we're going back right now." Most of them knew the other people that were on that boat too. So 3 days of motoring to get back to Costa Rica, and so Dan made it into Santa Barbara same day I did from Michigan. Took him 3 days.
Wow.
We both arrived into LAX about the same time.
How many people on that boat did your sister know before getting on the boat?
My sister Sarah knew them. My sister Christy didn't because she'd been away sailing. My sister Sarah grieves the loss of 18 friends from that fire.
Good grief.
It's got to be
Yeah.
gut-wrenching.
Wow.
Oh, so much harder for her than for me because...
Was that a club that was on the boat?
The company is called Worldwide Diving Adventures, WDA.
Yep.
Run word of mouth.
Right. Oh, okay.
We didn't do the advertising for the dive shop, and the company took off.
And that was Bill's company.
Yeah, started by my mom and dad in the 70s. It's still operated currently by Dan Chua, the widower of my sister. He's doing a great job. He just got back from Palau.
Wow. So you earlier gave me a notebook, and on it had a picture of your brother-in-law
Yeah.
going into the ocean.
In Cabo.
Was that
Baja.
in Baja?
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a special
Yeah.
reason for that spot.
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain some of that.
Okay, Dan, I'm telling a bit of your story. He's such a great guy. I love him to death. He proposed to my sister down in Baja. They'd been college sweethearts at UC Santa Barbara. They were in Baja, and I had gotten married, and they were going to be next, I think. So he said, "Would you marry me?" And that's their favorite spot to surf. They just drive the truck down to Baja, sleep in the truck, go surfing there, and they got engaged.
So there
And
is
then a year later, got married there.
in the same place or somewhere down there.
They rented something nice. We didn't sleep in the truck for
Gotcha.
the wedding.
So the book, what did you, when you sat down and I'm write a book about this, where did you start? Did you start like you have certain topics that you wanted to talk about?
Wait, and then Dad went back to scatter her ashes on that wave.
Yes, that's what I was. And that's
Yeah.
the photo, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he bought the beachfront property and built a house there now.
Well, the actual photos on the notebook.
Oh, there's two. This is the wave that he scattered her ashes
But
on.
this is what the one that
Yeah.
I was talking
that
about.
one, yeah.
Yeah, walking out there.
That's him walking out to do that on that day. And who took this photo?
his buddy.
Huh.
I don't know.
People grieve differently. How have you been dealing with this?
Yeah, people really grieve differently. I grieve through talking, writing, expressing. My family has been 100% supportive. I would not have been able to heal without the support I had. Really leaned into my faith and questioned God, but came around to find healing. Writing this book was so healing for me that I believe it's healing for others too. If you were like really close to a loved one that died, you might not be ready for the depth of grief that'll come from this book for you. But if it was like one step removed, I really think this book is going to help bring healing to the Santa Cruz community. People that feel affected by it. You're gonna walk through that path of grief with me as you read it. I bare my soul. I share about I wanted to have another baby, name her Christy, And then Christmas came, and I had a miscarriage. It was like life was like, is life ever going to be the same? And the answer is no. Am I ever going to get over grief? No. I'm going to move forward one day at a time and find a new path and cherish the memories.
Was there usually there's some anger when and so when I was in Santa Barbara a few days after, I could tell that some people were really angry.
Yeah.
About what happened. There were some communications issues early on. The company sort of stuck their head in the sand, didn't want to talk about it, wouldn't answer the phone.
Right.
Like, it was so.
Right.
A lot of questions that were unanswered for all of us.
Did you know? Who was it? Was it somebody that was blamed for it or at
Well,
fault?
the captain has been charged with negligence. I don't know if that 4 years. I think he got. Is that if I'm not mistaken?
Yep.
But
Manslaughter.
there wasn't somebody on watch, which is supposedly required. There's been a lot of changes to the Coast Guard regulations from this for overnight boats.
Yes.
Smoke alarms have to be daisy chained around the boat now. There's a lot of.
They said no daisy chaining allowed.
Oh, but separate smoke alarms.
But interconnected smoke alarms are. This boat. I want to show the picture.
Sure.
This boat was a small passenger vessel.
75 feet? Is that what it was?
75 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big
boat?
question.
That's the picture of the boat on the cover, smoldering.
Actually, Pastor Rene said this at my presentation last weekend. He said, Heather was ready to forgive, but didn't know who to blame. And as I wrote this book, I searched for all the evidence at all the angles. And the pathway led me down to maybe conspiracy theory, and then okay, that's not true. And then finally, when I get to talk to the surviving crew members, I hear the true story. And the story in this book, no one has heard yet. It was pulled not all in the end. I relied on the NTSB report, but they didn't put all that the crew members told them in their report. The news didn't talk to the people I talked to.
What haven't we heard? What haven't we heard?
How the crew responded to the fire. How they all sacrificed their life to try to rescue those people.
You never heard about that.
People that were angry
So,
don't know that.
So just from my understanding, because I did follow this. Like I said, I felt so close to it. They kind of made it sound like the crew just abandoned ship.
That's exactly what they said.
Yeah.
They said the captain was the first to abandon ship.
Mm-hmm. And then now the crew's.
It's just a twisted truth. It's
right.
true but twisted. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it sounds like the fire was raging when they realized there was a fire. And that's, again, your research in this book.
Yeah.
That's what you found too?
I can't say how big it was when they found it, except to say they couldn't even get down from the top deck to see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's too hot.
The smoke and the flames coming out the sides.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that a half hour earlier, the galley cook was there cleaning up, so we know this happened a really fast explosive fire. According to the fire inspector I spoke to, evidence of a flashover of flames, evidence that this was explosive, sudden fire.
Propane or something, maybe?
That was my first conspiracy theory. Because I know that they had the barbecue night before, and I know my sister would have escaped. She must have died in her sleep, is what I'm thinking. There was no propane on board.
Oh, really?
No.
Wow. Huh.
I know.
So there was a diesel stove and diesel furnace and diesel.
It was not.
appliances.
It was not that either.
Huh.
You want me to spill the beans a little?
So no, I know.
Yeah.
So what I was told was all the camera gear being plugged in, all the batteries.
The NTSB concluded it was likely a battery fire. The surviving crew members concluded they felt it was a battery fire. Then 2 years later, the FBI came out with a different conclusion.
So 2 years later, the FBI.
Do you have to buy the book to get that?
Spill the beans a little bit.
FBI comes out with something that they weren't supposed to release until after Mr. Boylan's criminal trial was completed. The FBI was withholding all their evidence from the public, from all the news, until it took over 4 years to get this conviction. Okay, so the FBI, ATF said they quote, ran over 100 mock fires of the boat, trying to see the timing, and they decided it came from the
Drum roll, please.
trash can under the stairs.
Really? So it was a cigarette?
The captain did smoke. Drum roll. Could it be the captain that caused the fire?
Jeez.
Why not lay it all on him?
Well, he's already been the blame. Now, did he go to jail?
Good question. He appealed.
He appealed, so they're waiting.
He's still never given his test statement yet of what his side of the story is.
That's interesting. Why do you think he wouldn't do that? Incriminate himself?
No, following his lawyer's advice.
Yeah, the lawyers do that.
Hoping it'd be forgotten.
Let's move on to the battery topic.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Okay, so
How many batteries were there? Well, you go ahead.
yeah, I estimate 40.
That many.
And that's because of the photography equipment, mostly?
The surviving crew members told me the big charging photography equipment was on the opposite side of the galley, so it wasn't that. But the NTSB concluded the fire source happened where the fire burned the deepest into the hole, which is where the quote charging table was. This was something my dad actually started on the boats. He said, "We can't even eat here at our tables. It's like big wraparound galley family style eating." Because everybody's got their cell phone charging on the table, their dive computer, their laptop, their dive lights, camera, batteries. There could be a scooter, but there wasn't on this trip. So it wasn't, I don't believe it was one of the big batteries. But when you have a group of batteries, there's a magnetic field.
Okay.
This happens at 3 a.m., so we know that the batteries were done charging by then. So it was not because of an overloaded circuit. This same type of fires happened on multiple other boats around the same time. So we know this is after the batteries are done charging, that then a battery overheats, continues, and has thermal runaway. And I can tell you, people have reported the exact batteries to our Consumer Safety Product Board, and I've been told by the government, yeah, we know these batteries need to be off the market. They are burning down dive shops that rent out camera equipment with batteries. Boats.
And is it a manufacturing
Yeah,
problem?
and you know what they'll say every time? The fire investigator, we can't say for sure if the battery started the fire.
Right.
Why aren't they not telling us how dangerous the batteries are? What do you think?
Because they don't want to be the ones to get blamed for not telling us earlier?
Yeah, you know, doesn't the FAA do a great job when you fly?
Oh, yeah.
They tell you the battery's dangerous.
Turn off your cell phone. No, put in
Carry
airplane
on,
mode.
carry on. Something like 300 battery fires every year on airlines. So they handle them every week, probably somewhere.
You think it was a cellular phones being charged? Was the
No,
culprit?
cellular phones actually are pretty safe because when they overheat, the computer turns it off and it stops.
So it was camera gear, you think?
Nope.
It was the vacuum.
So right before was the night dive, and they had just had this glorious birthday party. There were 4 people on board having a birthday. The highest number, double the number that's normal for a night dive. 17 divers went out diving. To night dive, you have to have 2 battery lights, another battery light on the back of your tank. So 17 divers, each with 2 dive lights.
Right.
So that's what, yeah.
And when I investigated the dive shops that have had fires, that was from a battery that came out of a dive light. The fire that happened on the Vision before, that was from a battery from a dive light. So you look back, okay, what's the battery? It wasn't the dive light, it was the battery. It's when you have to take the battery out of the device, expose it to marine air, maybe a wet towel, and you're charging it in a separate device. Well, now that's dangerous. Yeah.
Did anybody from like the FBI contact you about this investigation?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You did?
Sure.
They wanted your research and what you found? Did anyone ask you about that?
Oh, the FBI was at first so impressive to me and then disheartening. I kind of went from naive to Oh man, I don't want to get in trouble. Talk about them.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
Okay, but they did. I'll tell you
They're not
the
watching.
part Is that on the same day, everybody across the U.S. were interviewed in their home by the FBI. So they came to my home in Michigan. Same day came to my dad's home in Santa Cruz. Same day interviewed Dan. Everybody across the U.S. that was
Same
involved.
day?
And is that because they were thinking maybe it could have been a terrorist attack or something?
So we don't cross our stories.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to the FBI agent, so what questions are you going to ask to find out what batteries were on board? He said, we're not going to ask that.
Why not?
I'll tell you what batteries my sister had. Her dive light was an alkaline battery, not a charging one. I don't want to blame a certain passenger that died, but I just want that battery off the market. It's like, oh, we cannot go there.
Wow.
And I said, well, what about the company, battery company? We are not going to ask any of their loved ones about what batteries that person had on board.
I mean, obviously going to conspiracy theories, hashtag cover up or something, right? I mean, it seems like the battery. I mean, why wouldn't they want to know if there's a potential hazard from batteries?
Somebody else answer that question, please. Yeah, good. I ask questions that don't have answers in the book.
Before you board, didn't you get a list of items that what is recommended that you bring on board?
Ooh, the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, has asked the Coast Guard to be 20 years ago implement some battery regulations for the boating industry. They formed a committee 10 years later, and that's all the further they got.
Well,
but now it's changed.
Well, yeah. Now you've got this.
Well, and that's a good segue to that. There's been some legislation passed.
Yes.
And some rules.
Yes.
That are to hopefully prevent this from happening in the future.
Yeah, let me tell you, if you own a boat, can I give you some tips? Mm-hmm. Number one, if you have a battery in a device that you take out, like a dive light, just use the alkaline battery, not the rechargeable kind. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be charging something, don't do it while you're sleeping because you're not awake to catch it when it first ignites.
Great advice.
If you got anything wet, do not charge your batteries near it. And boats have a lot of wet spots. Mm-hmm. Get like a cash box, some kind of metal box. Put your phone in it or something. Just drill a little hole for the cord or something so that you're charging inside a metal box to contain the flames.
Aren't you glad you got rid of your boat?
I still have another one. Well, it sounded like can we stop?
Oh, yeah.
Switch to some liability issues.
Oh.
I do know that there's been a magnitude of lawsuits
Yeah.
associated with this.
Yeah.
I do know it seems like and maybe you can fill me in. The company that owned the boats did some legal wrangling, so they were only liable for what the boats were worth or something. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they figured out the boat was worth $0.
Yeah.
Which reduced their liability for the event.
Yeah.
Are there still legal efforts being made from the victims' families and loved ones on this?
Ooh, good question.
That boat's 75 foot long. It's worth $0?
Well, after I guess they said
Off the fire, yeah.
right.
I mean,
yeah,
you gotta
but that's what I had heard about it. Maybe you can.
Yeah, I have a bunch of things to say about that.
Okay.
How much time do we have left?
You got a little bit of time. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, for starters, day after the fire, we were on a conference call with a top lawyer, mass tort lawyer, who says, I'm going to tell you guys right now how this is going to go down. The insurance is going to force the boat owner to do this limitation liability. And the insurance companies are really powerful here. There's only 6 insurance companies for all boats in the U.S. In fact, there's currently an investigative documentary being done by Nicole Noren in Santa Barbara from ESPN. It's going to be released this February in the Santa Barbara Film Festival. She's checking out those boat insurance companies. So I understand this is the way insurance works, and that this is the way everybody who escapes paying money out goes. Mm-hmm. So I was not surprised in the least, but it felt really cold-hearted. I quote it in my book, this lady who lost her husband and daughter gets this letter in the mail from the boat company. No personal note of I'm sorry, just to say, this letter is to say that the value of your husband and daughter's life is zero.
Can you imagine that?
That would make you really angry.
I mean, at this point in time, there probably haven't even been services for some of these people.
Okay, so now President Biden's revoked that law. It's no longer in the Constitution, can't be used.
Wow.
We can't retro, but going forward, no more fire's going to do that. And so the insurance had to recalculate how much they're going to charge the boat owners.
Well, you sort of had this mission. You know, I
Yeah.
feel like
You
it's
feel
been a
it,
mission.
right? Yeah.
But you're also explaining to me right now, your efforts have made some really positive changes.
That's right.
And possibly could save a life.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
that has to, because you went through such a terrible experience. You're still grieving. You lose a family member. I
Yeah.
mean, 39 people, I think. What?
33 passengers, 1 crew member.
Okay.
They're called the Conception 34.
And there's been some memorials, I know, in Santa Barbara. There's one on the
Yeah.
island, I think.
Yeah, if you go out to the Santa Barbara Harbor, you walk out like all the way past the yacht club. There's
all the
a
way
museum.
all the way on the end of the jetty.
Yeah, at the end of the jetty is called the Lost at Sea Memorial.
I've seen it. Yeah.
And they added some beautiful things. They added a nice monument that lists the 34 names.
Wow.
Yeah, and they put a fence there to transition the things that were at sea landing.
Right.
To there.
So yeah,
It's
and I've
there.
been there, and there's still people putting fresh flowers out there.
There's people cleaning the bird poop for us.
Yeah, I've literally have walked to the
Yeah.
end of the jetty. I like it because the sand spits there. That's the surf spot there. That's I think a really an awesome place because
Yeah.
you sit there and you see the boats going in and out of the
Yeah,
harbor.
it's
You know, so it's a
beautiful
nice spot.
spot. It is.
But I did see that people have been making an effort.
There was a group of students from Pacific Collegiate High
Yeah,
School here
PCS. Uh-huh.
that painted rocks for the 2 high school students that passed away, and you'll see their rocks there at the
Yeah.
Lost at Sea Memorial.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
You've had pushback from people in Santa Cruz, right? That you wrote a book that people think you're making money off of a disaster. What do you want to say something about that?
I don't want to say about it
Right.
except that I'm so sorry they're hurting too.
Yeah.
If they're hurting and they're not understanding what my book's about, I hope someday they'll know that I love them. I'm sorry but I didn't write my book about anyone else but my sister.
Right.
This is my journey about how I am so amazed at how amazing my sister was, the family company and the history of my family here. It's there. And then my grief journey is 1/3 of the book about me. No, it's not about other people.
Right. Yeah.
And then the next transitions to the detective hat I put on to investigate. This puzzle had a lot of missing pieces.
sounds like it.
Yeah, and there's a story there in my book that nobody knows yet till you read it.
Does it give you a little solace that she was on a dive boat?
Absolutely. Guess what the theme is of my book? Do you have it on your? Yeah, that works.
Oh, there we go. Live life to the full.
Why not, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's because it always says like, people who have these accidents doing what they love is sort of like in my way a beautiful way to go.
Yes.
Early, and it's so hard on the people who are left behind. But we all have to go, and so.
Doing what they loved.
Yeah,
the
she
night
was
before.
doing what she loved, and life's a
Yeah.
risk. It doesn't matter what it is. Now, things that are preventable are what we need to work on, and this
Yeah.
didn't have to happen, obviously.
Yes.
But your work is making a positive change,
Yeah.
and you're also like this is a memorial to your sister.
It is.
It'll be here longer than you,
Yeah.
so that's cool. So that's I'm
Yeah.
proud of your efforts in that, and
Thank
I'm
you.
sad that people are sad about that. But like you said, people grieve in different ways.
Yeah.
Did your sister live here?
Yeah.
She did?
She lived near the Santa Cruz Harbor.
Okay.
Just a little duplex place. Her and Dan.
Yeah.
She did yoga here in Santa
Yeah,
Cruz. She was a yoga instructor. She was born on West Cliff Drive in her home. And last week I had the most amazing interaction. Can we transition to that? In a
Sure.
minute?
Yeah.
Okay, so last week I was at the Simpkins Swim Center.
Well, you spoke, right? You spoke there.
Yeah, I did. My sister used to teach scuba classes there at the Simpkins Swim Center. Okay. And this lady comes to hear my presentation and says, I've lost touch with your parents, but I used to work with your mom. We had this beautiful upstairs on our house. It was 1118 Westcliff Drive, right where there's no more sidewalk. And my mom taught Lamaze classes for pregnant ladies. It was ghastly unheard of that she had 3 kids, with the population. And my mom, had this midwife that came last week to tell me about how touched she was by the book and that she's the one that delivered my sister Christy.
Wow.
And now we're reunited. I was like,
Wow.
here's my mom's number, call her. It was so cool. Katie Lang, thanks for coming.
Well, the gifts just keep coming.
Yeah, I love that.
From this project, which is cool.
Yeah. I wonder where it'll go.
Where can people get it?
Okay, you can get it on Amazon. Mm-hmm. I think Bookshop Santa Cruz.
We'll have it. They
The
usually
library's
support
got
local.
it.
It's in the library.
All the library branches got it too.
Oh, okay. So you can go to the library.
And
All of
it's
our
on
beautiful
Kindle.
libraries, and
You
it's on
can.
Kindle.
Yeah, and Kindle.
And are you relieved that you're done with this project?
Can I have a back rub?
Or a beer?
Dad, talk about my kids have walked this journey with me. Someone said to my daughter, who, by the way, wrote one of the most beautiful chapters in this book. My 17-year-old daughter wrote it when she was 15.
Wow.
And she said, and they asked her, so what's the experience been like for you? And she says, something like terrible. What was the word?
I don't know.
Something like terrible. And they're like, oh, because of the grief? No, my mom writing this book. I couldn't sleep. I'd be up in the night, like for a year. I didn't sleep. I just write the book when I couldn't sleep. About a year or two into it, 1 year into it, there was so much anger towards me from the other family members that I had to say, okay, fine, I'm just not going to write this book. You win. And I stopped for a year. And instead published a different book. I published a book of my sister's writings that she'd been working on trying to publish.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So I published that book called, something in the wild. Going deeper. Yeah. I can't think of it at the moment. And after a year in that book being finished, then I was writing, came back. I just couldn't stop myself. I watched this Harriet Tubman movie, and I'm like, I'm that driven. I'll do anything to help another person survive, get them across and save them. Like, I was driven, and I had faith and family behind me. They were like, our mom is going crazy. We hope this book's done. Yes. It turned out beautiful.
Joe,
yeah.
let's hear your version of it. How was it the whole time she wouldn't write this book? She was that dinner was missing, lunch was missing, she didn't pay attention to you? No, what happened?
It was just, it's weird, when you have your mom all of a sudden just be, different, and then also, a family member is gone at the same time.
Was it hard for you?
It was an interesting experience, I would say.
You can feel free to say some of the stupid stuff I did. It's okay. You're being so gentle about
Don't
it.
pay attention. Well, she's had her bit.
Yeah,
She's had her time.
It's time for the dirt.
It's time for the kids say the best stuff on the show.
That year during the pandemic.
We don't listen to you.
Oh, yeah. What was it like? 2019 pandemic.
I don't remember a whole lot. I mean, it was a while ago. I just remember I hung out with my sister a lot.
Yeah.
We'd be like, oh, just don't go in the room, Mom is. She's just being really, I don't know, stressed out and just hard to be around. So sometimes we would just go into, another room. And during the pandemic, we had online school. So we would just, work on that.
Yeah.
And then it would just be me and my sister. And then Dad was at work.
You go to school here in town?
No, actually, we live in Michigan.
Oh, that's right. You guys live in Michigan. That's
Yep,
right.
so we go to school there.
Okay, cool.
That's cool. Me and my sister both go to Williamston.
Cool.
So
When do we have to go back to Michigan?
Friday we fly down to LA. There's a really special memorial going on. And we'll go back to school. He's missing first week of high school.
That's fine.
Pretty bad thing for a teacher to do to their kid, but
Have you been participating in the memorial celebrations and the, the dedications?
well, I live far away, so I've missed quite a bit of it, what the other people have done. Like, there's really strong support from those victims' family members during the trial. They were there in the courtroom, sat through some really tough, heart-wrenching evidence. I was not there for that, but I'm going to be there this weekend. Because of the hard feelings, I didn't feel welcome, and I don't want them to not be there if I'm there. So I did my own thing.
Did this whole thing bring people together or did it tear people apart?
Y'all both, depending
Both.
on how you handle the grief.
Okay.
Both.
One thing we did do is we went on a liveaboard memorial diving trip. So there's
Where was that at? Where'd you guys go?
Santa Cruz Islands.
Okay.
There's a really big cement block with engravings on it of all the people
monument?
who died. A monument.
Yeah.
Underwater where
Yeah.
the boat fire happened.
Yeah.
So we went diving there.
Yeah.
It was with a bunch of other people who had also lost people on that.
What was that trip like for you? It was on the Vision with the new company, Channel Islands Expeditions.
The Vision is the sister ship.
Yep, part of the fleet.
Is that the only boat that's still in Santa Barbara?
Nope, and the Truth.
The Truth's there too.
They're still there, and they're operating, and they're a great company. I give them 5 stars.
And they
Right from the start, they went above and beyond what the Coast Guard's asking.
Awesome.
Yep. Okay, so my sister Sarah chartered the first trip that the Coast Guard allowed the Vision to go out on. My family, her family, the closest came along because this wonderful lady from Malibu Divers, Barbara Gentile, she did something amazing. First ever underwater memorial in a state national park.
Well,
National
yeah.
park. It's Santa Cruz
I'm sure
Island is a national
that wasn't
park.
easy to get that done.
Oh my gosh! Did all
Yeah.
the signatures she needed? She got it done in time for this first anniversary.
Wow.
And we dove it the second anniversary. We were diving together. You remember?
I do. I remember there were a bunch of really big crabs. I forgot the name. Like I forgot
crabs?
the name.
Yeah.
There's some. That was cool.
And we saw there was still personal items from the boat fire there on the bottom of the sea.
What is that like? Personally, how did that trip feel? Were you choking up underwater, swimming around?
You want to answer? Did you cry underwater?
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, understandable.
Yeah.
I mean, it had to have been an emotional trip.
We stopped at Platts Harbor. My sister Sarah used the radio to read everybody's names. U.S. Air Force did a flyover and tipped their wings at us. Coast Guard there
Wow.
to honor those people's lives.
Wow.
And our captain had a baby. Well, our captain's wife had a baby
Yeah.
during that time. So that was
On
cool.
board?
No.
not on
But
board.
while he was out
Yeah,
there.
but
The next
he had to
day.
leave.
Oh wow! So he made it.
Over out of
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
They had another boat come pick him up and take him to shore. We were like
Yeah, the truth.
halfway through.
That's cool.
So, like, here you are mourning the loss of these wonderful, amazing people, and then the circle of life that Captain Ian's wife had her baby the next day, and so we continued our trip, and he went back to Santa Barbara to meet his new baby.
Wow.
It was pretty cool.
Well, the book.
Yep.
Her Last Voyage.
Yep.
There it is, right there, folks.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Congratulations on finishing this and bringing it to share with everybody.
Yeah,
And-
TC and I, we saw the show. We wanted to record all the surf and skate history, but it blossomed into like more of Santa Cruz. And this is something I'm glad we got to talk to you, and we feel for you in your loss. But a lot of people who come on our show aren't here anymore. We've lost people who come on the show, and but we just thank you for coming on the show and telling. Thanks to Pastor Renee, and thanks for coming on the show and telling us your story. I told him today, I go, TC, this is a big story we're going to talk tonight.
It's a huge story. It was big news. I mean, it was worldwide news.
International.
It was.
I'm selling books in other countries.
I'm sure, and
Yeah.
and there's just as a boater, it just tugs my heart to have an accident at sea, just from my experience of boating my entire life.
Well, you had that experience last year where I called you. You were fishing
We were sinking that day?
And then like half an hour later, you're like, we're sinking.
Yeah, no, I ran over a giant sunfish, and we almost sunk the boat, and you know, but tsunami
The
or
Coast
whatever.
Guard's there to help you out, right?
Well, they're in Monterey, so yeah, it's yeah. We have the harbor patrol. They're here on the weekends.
Yeah,
but on this day, I was able to limp home,
Because
and it worked
hands
out.
down, the Coast Guard does an incredible job. They got an award for how they responded to this tragedy. I have to say, I'm so thankful to how they tried to rescue survivors.
I am a giant fan of the Coast Guard, and they are literally the saviors of the sea. And there's situations that they'll come out and get you when nobody's going to come out
Yeah,
and get you. You know,
they came
so,
out with the helicopters. One came all the way up from San Diego.
Yeah, and you know, every time they get in a helicopter, they're risking their lives to save somebody else.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
again, everybody, there it is, right there.
Thank
And you
you.
said it's on Amazon, Bookshop Santa Cruz,
And the
Kindle,
library.
and it's in the Santa Cruz Public Library system. You can check it out, read it, check it back in, and somebody else can take their turn next. Heather, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Carpe
really
diem.
appreciate it. Yeah, I really appreciate it. She's back. You got mom back.
Yup.
Yeah.
Nice.
Let's go surfing.
Mom's back.
Yeah.
Neil,
sir.
do we have a show next week? We
Yeah,
know.
we do. I don't know.
We don't. Okay, we're gonna get this. Yeah, worry about that later.
Yeah, worry about that later.
Great show tonight, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Like I said, if you're on the road,
Chief make happen on the Wednesday night.
yeah, Wednesday night shows are fun.
Yeah.
We will see you next week on the Off Lip Radio
Good
Show.
job. Buy your wife some clothes today. Nice work,
Yeah, I
buddy.
took care of the wife. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.